Hey, everybody. Welcome to this first episode of episode 1. I am Sergio Barrera, and I'm excited that you're here for this brand new project that I have for you here on my KOABD channel. Um, this project actually was born out of the fact that for years now, for a while, I haven't been able to decide what the heck I want to watch on TV. And so, across all of the major streaming platforms, I have watch list upon watch list of shows upon shows. And every time I sit down to watch some TV, I find that I'm just scrolling through things and I never really decide to watch something. So I thought, well, I guess the best way to solve it is to just watch them all. And so episode 1 was born. This project is all about me watching the first episodes of countless shows across all major streaming platforms and then telling you about them and hopefully helping you decide whether it's a show you might want to watch. And so here on episode 1, I hope to help you with that decision. And I'm going to start out this very first episode of episode 1 by looking at a show that really caught my attention. It's Apple TV Plus's Foundation. Foundation is a science fiction show that is based on the novels of Isaac Asimov, his Foundation series. And when I tell you that you really have to be a science fiction fan to get into this show. I don't know how else to put it. The show was released in 2021, and there have been 3 seasons of Foundation. It was created by David S. Goyer. You know his work from the Dark Knight trilogy. He wrote all 3 of those movies. He also wrote the Blade trilogy, as well as movies like Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. And so a lot of David S. Goyer's work is in the field of science fiction and, just fantasy type or superhero type movies. Well, he has put together this show called Foundation, again, based on the novels of Isaac Asimov. And I'm going to try to explain the concept and premise of the show in the best way possible. But it's not going to be very easy because a lot happens in episode 1. The show is set in the far future, and the known galaxy is ruled by a trio of clone emperors. There's Brother Day, Brother Dusk, and Brother Dawn. They are clones of an emperor that ruled 400 years prior to the setting of the show. And again, the fact that there are clones is important because there's sort of a rotation going on. Brother Dusk is in the twilight of his life, and so he's soon to be, moving on into the next life, so to speak. Brother Day is the main ruler of the galaxy, and Brother Dawn is the younger version of the Emperor clone. If that sounds confusing, trust me, that's just the beginning. Episode 1 basically walks us through the sort of stage setting of these 3 rulers, and also of the initial premise of the show, which is the fact that it takes place on a planet called Trantor. Trantor is the capital of the galaxy. And so what we find is that this location, this planet, is just basically where all of the populations, the planets of the galaxy, sort of centralize themselves. And there's a lot of traffic coming in and out of this planet. And the planet itself has this immense structure called a star bridge. The star bridge is basically a spaceport, and starships will dock at the spaceport called the star bridge. And then there's a space elevator that you travel from your ship all the way to the planet's surface, and it takes 14 hours to get to the planet's surface. Again, if this is all sounding very convoluted, then this was all just one episode. Long story short, too late. Someone blows up the star bridge. 2 rival factions are accused of having, by a terrorist act, destroyed the star bridge. The star bridge falls to the planet, kills 100 million people, and there we have the first main thing that occurs within episode 1. The other thing that occurs in episode 1 is we meet Harry Seldon and Gail Dornick. Harry Seldon is a professor of what's called psychohistory. It's called that because basically you and I call it math and science. And through math and science, Harry Seldon has determined that the empire that's ruled by these three clones has a limited shelf life. And that makes him basically guilty of treason in the eyes of the emperors. And so Harry Seldon is not trying to be a rebel of any sort. He's just known and determined that the empire is basically on a short shelf life of just a few more centuries before it collapses. Also, in this first episode, we meet Gail Dornick, who is a sort of an outcast herself from her own planet because of her love of mathematics and science. She's cast out and is sent to Trantor to meet Harry Seldon, and it happens because she wins a mathematic contest by solving a complex proof, and thus is allowed to be sent to Trantor to meet Harry Seldon, and joins him as part of his group. Because of the destruction of the Star Bridge, Harry Seldon and Gail Dornick and their followers are actually allowed to be exiled, even though they're convicted of treason, because the event that occurred with the Star Bridge kind of proves that Harry Seldon is on to something. And so what happens is they are instead exiled to a planet called Terminus, where they are to create the Foundation being a repository of all of the known knowledge that the galaxy has collected over its lifespan. The idea being that if the Empire does fall, well, then there's a repository of knowledge to be able to regain by future generations all of the knowledge that might otherwise be lost in the collapse of the Empire itself. It's a show, man, and it's one of those shows where there's a lot to keep up with. In just the first episode, there's time jumps, there's flashbacks, and so you really have to be patient with this show. So let's talk about the pros and cons of this first episode of Foundation. The pros are, as I said earlier, this is as science fiction as it can possibly get. You really got to love science fiction to really get into this show. Secondly, the acting is fantastic, particularly Lee Pace as Brother Day. He is just a tyrant if there ever was one, and just a fantastic acting job. The intrigue of the premise and the effects of math and science on the story are enough to kind of get you curious about where this might all be going. The cons: time jumps get confusing. There's so much exposition in the first episode that you sit there and kind of begin to wonder, is this a show I want to stick with? So the question is, would I continue this series? I did. And I got into the fourth episode before I realized this has just gotten more and more convoluted. Every episode, there's massive time jumps forward, there's flashbacks. You're trying to figure out, okay, who's who? Okay, this is her daughter, but she's still over here. And it became a bit of a difficult watch for me after a few episodes. So these time jumps and flashbacks are challenging to keep up with, and you're kind of often left having to recall, well, who the heck is that, and what were they supposed to be doing, and wait, aren't they dead? Questions like that just kind of kept popping up throughout the entirety of the episode. So hey, listen, I myself might get back to it someday. I'm not quite sure, but if you choose to watch Foundation as a result of this episode, number one, thank you. But more importantly, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the show Foundation. Don't forget, you can find it on Apple TV. Also, if you have any ideas for shows you want to make sure that I feature on this show, please leave me a note in the comments as well. I'm going to look at all the comments and continue to build my list. And we'll hopefully feature one of the suggestions you've made on a future episode. And I'll even name the person who gave me the idea. So with that in mind, thank you so much for joining me here on this first episode of episode 1. I am excited to bring you more as time goes on. And don't forget, click on that subscribe button and the notification bell, because my plan is to have as many of these episodes as possible day after day, because I want you to also know what show you might want to watch. So until then, don't forget, you're awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. I'll see you next time on episode 1.